Okay, here we go. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of Darien, Connecticut on April the 7th, 2021. We're going to go in the order that the applications are posted on legal notice. We only have 2 applications tonight, but of course we want to keep the applicants to a minimum of 10 minutes if possible. But with that said, we'll move forward. And the first applicant tonight is again applicant number 2-221. The application of Jeff McDougall on behalf of Brian and Sarah Williamson for property at 21 Oak Park Avenue. Mr. McDougall, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can. Yes, sir.
You got it? Okay. Yeah, I'm getting some feedback from something here. So
I am too. Everybody is on mute. Woody, go put your phone on mute. Getting feedback from that. There you go.
yeah, I think that took care of it. Good.
Yes, sir.
So we will get this started. We're basically kind of continuing the last variance application that we had, and I'm sure you've reviewed the materials. You've seen basically what we're asking for is a variance to allow a porch of a modest size to be put on the front of this house. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that has information on it, so I can share that. So let me start that as a slideshow. So basically what we're looking at is we're looking for a variance for a 16-foot by 6-foot covered front porch on the front of the house. One of the things that this accomplishes, this actually reduces the amount of coverage that is over the front setback line by removing the cheek roof that runs the entire length of the house, and removing that boxed window that was to the left of the front door. We've actually reduced the coverage very slightly by only a little over 2 feet, but it definitely is a reduction in the coverage within the front setback area. Now this lot, the history of it is very unusual. I mean, the house was moved from somewhere else and put in a position that people didn't realize that it was too close to the street. So it's definitely a unique situation, very specific to this property and not other properties in the area. So we are really looking at, the hardship here is the position of the existing house, the fact that we have the house on this curve. So, you've got the turnaround area there, which really kind of like pushes the everything backwards on this property towards the back because of the curve and the front setback. So, we are looking at this picture here shows a comparison of the house to the left of us, and you can see the house to the right, which is the house. All they've done with that house, that is the subject property, all they've done is they've taken the asbestos siding off. You can see the cheek roof is still there, and you see a comparison of the front facade of this house and how it looks compared to the adjacent properties. And when you go around the circle, it actually looks like this house to the left of it is closer to the street than this one. But so that gives you a visual look as to really what the impact of this would be. We also have here's another view of it. This also, we have hopefully this will work, but we do have a little like a video showing going around the circle, so you'll be able to see the relationship of the subject property to the adjacent houses. So you know.
I'm in. You see, I'm on there.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I can.
So you see the adjacent houses into the very large facades on those houses. So when you look here at here's a survey with the proposed 16 5-foot by 16-foot front porch. We're looking at how this front yard is curved into the house and how the house is over that front setback. So that position, anything you're going to do on the front of this house is going to require a variance. But, you know, as I mentioned before, we are looking at a reduction in overall building coverage within that front setback area by removing those cheek roofs and adding this little section. I actually have in the next drawing here, you can see the numbers that I have. So the reduction of the cheek roof on the left side of the proposed porch is 28.2. On the right side, it's 30.3 square feet. So we have a total reduction there. And then the proposed additional area, which is in the middle there, is like 56 square feet. So, you know, we're looking at almost a wash, but it's actually a little bit less in the building coverage. So that's, you know, that's really what we're doing here. And this porch is really small. I mean, it's not a massive structure, and it's going to work with the front of this house. The smaller design of a 5 foot by 8 foot porch just really doesn't fit with this house. It just is extremely small and just out of place. It doesn't fit with the neighborhood, doesn't provide a breakup of the front of this house. So, you know, that's our application. That is where we're going with this. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but
Hey, Jeff, this is Gary Green. Thank you
Gary.
for the presentation. And I'll tell you that, you know, I've seen you many times in the meeting room. This is the first time I've done this through Zoom. But I think the use of the slideshows, it was very helpful. But I do want to kind of zero in on one thing. I mean, when you say that the smaller porch wouldn't work, you're really talking strictly from an architectural point of view, right? And an aesthetic point of view. There's nothing that is of a necessity for functionality. It's really form, not function. Is that correct?
well, it does provide for more of a covered area for the entrance of the house. When you're talking about you know, an 8 foot porch, and you look at, you know, a door, and you have any kind of rain and wind, especially when the porch is only 5 feet deep, you know, we're not offering a lot of protection with the roof on this, you know,
except
on those smaller
except
porches.
that it's been the board's prior decisions that, and we felt, and doesn't mean the board can't revisit issues, but we felt that a 5 foot 8 porch did provide, especially when covered, did provide the protection from the elements. And in fact, when we came to that decision several years ago, I think we changed it from, you know, 3 by 5 or something. Jeff probably remembers better than I do. So I mean, the board did make a decision that 5 by 8 does provide that function of a protection.
Yeah, and you know, I could see that working on some houses, you know, where, you know, the front facade of the house has more of a breakup to it. But I think on this one, you know, yes, we are speaking from an architectural standpoint here, that,
Okay.
you know, the look of it is something that fits with the neighborhood and, you know, provides for a look which doesn't look out of place in the neighborhood. So, you know, I
Yeah,
think
you know, we appreciate that, but when, you know, my personal difficulty that may be shared with others on the board is that when the applicant provides an alternative design, it's hard for me personally to view the proposal as the minimal adjustment necessary. So, but that will be deliberated by the board members, I'm sure.
Mhm. Understood.
You're
So
on mute, Jeff. Jeff, you're on mute.
I'm not on mute, am I?
No,
I'm
Jeff,
on
Williams.
mute.
Jeff, quick question.
You can only have one Jeff here.
I was on mute. Time out. I got it.
Okay.
I'm good. All right. So Jeff, so along those lines, look, if you can give us some sort of hardship with regard to the 16-foot porch, that'd be great. Safety issue? Does it connect to the driveway? Does it, I mean, anything along those lines? That's question number one. Question number two is, I'm a little confused because in your slideshow, in the very first slide, the size of the porch was listed as 16 by 6.
Oh, that should have been correct. It is 16 by 5 we're talking about, and that is what we have on the maps and all. So that's my issue. I must have missed that
Okay,
number.
but you can understand my confusion there,
Oh, yes,
right?
absolutely, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and when
5 foot is
we're
correct.
talking, Okay, understood. And that's the finished trim?
Yes,
Side?
yeah, that's out to the, actually to the eave. We're talking about not just the face of the floor of the porch. We're talking out to the eave overhangs on the porch.
Understood. So can you provide the board with any type of hardship whatsoever? You know, love to help you, but we just can't, as Gary said, we just can't approve something from an architectural standpoint, whether we like it or not. Just
Well,
Could
I believe
jump-
Kent Epley has something to say, so.
Go ahead, Kent.
Well, I just wanted to point out that, I think it's worth taking into consideration the roofs that are already we're basically reducing the coverage in that front setback by taking off those roofs to the left and the right. And I think that's a key point, that we're not asking for any more additional coverage in this area. We're just looking to change it from one area to another to make a covered porch that's more in keeping with the neighborhood. So it's not like there's nothing there and we're asking for this. There's something there that we're taking away, giving back to get it.
So wasn't that the basis by which we gave you the variance a month ago? That because you were taking that off, a month ago we said, okay, we're going to grant you that variance despite some of the
Kevin, you
nonconformity. Now that we've given you that, you're coming back and again saying, oh.
If you recall the meeting, at the meeting, we were told specifically to leave that cheek roof on. That was the last we were told. At the deliberation, it changed, but we were specifically told, make sure you leave that cheek roof on for this hearing. And then it was taken away. So that was, that was something that was never agreed to or discussed. We were actually told specifically to leave it, and then that changed. So I just wanted to point that out too.
I mean, I'm sorry if I'm breaking up. I just.
Yeah, Kev, you're breaking up.
Nonconformity. So I find it hard.
Now he's on mute. Kevin, hang on. Time out, everybody. Kevin, time out. You broke up there, so can we try that comment one more time, please?
Sure, I'm going to move to somewhere where I might have better wireless. My point was, regardless of what was said at the end of the meeting, my vote last month on the question of giving you the variance for the other work was based solely on the fact that you were reducing the nonconformity. That was the basis of my vote, and the reason I supported it, because I found a hard time saying that there was a hardship here. So I find it hard now to give you that same basis for a second change and a second variance.
Okay, I just, in fairness to us, it was something that was specifically mentioned by the chair to keep that for this next application. So, and we weren't part or able to comment or have any input as to that once the deliberation happened. But I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think one more thing we talked about, if I remember, we had asked you to come back and tell us what's the minimum that you require, to make your design work within the guidance of the variance.
Yes, we had come in with a much larger porch on the first application. And, we were told that, if we had asked for that at that time, that basically that was going to be denied. So, really the issue here is the front yard setback. And, we're not changing the front yard setback. Whichever porch goes on here, you still have that front yard setback. It's going to be the same dimension, whether we have a 16-foot porch or an 8-foot porch. So when it really comes down to it, that's what the variance is for. I understand, the size is it's bulk in the front setback area, but as Kent mentioned, we did look at this in the original application as, okay, is there something, okay, if we give up the cheap roofs, you know, we're going to keep the same amount of bulk within that front setback area by reducing this porch down to 16 feet. And I think that was the thought pattern, you know, that we had, was to try to, you know, make it the same. You know, let's keep the bulk in that front setback area the same, and that's what we tried to accomplish here with the 16-foot porch.
So the
I mean, we'd
porch,
love to have a bigger one, but you
the
know.
porch hasn't, the size hasn't changed since you came last time to us. It's the same size now.
No,
No.
it's much smaller. We
Much
originally
smaller
had
than
it
what we
going across, yeah, it was originally, I think, 30 feet or something. It was from the edge of the house to there. We shrunk it significantly. The other thing, it's a minor point, but there's a bump out bay window, double bay window to the left of the front door that we're recessing back in, which was something else that was also mentioned. I mean, it's a minor adjustment, but just so you know.
Okay. And I think we still have to get an answer on Jeff's question about the hardship.
I mean, you know, the hardship that we are really running with here is the position of this house and the fact that, you know, if this house had not been put in the position that it was in, we wouldn't even be talking about this. They could put a porch of just about any size on the front of this thing. You know, we're not talking a large amount of bulk within the non-conforming area by adding this porch on here, and I, you know, I keep harping back to that, where it is, you know, we're trying to keep it the same by removing the cheap roofs and keeping this porch. You know, it was our impression that we would you know, be looking at the same amount of basic, you know, encroachment into the front setback area.
I'd have to ask the owner, who I think is on here, Brian Williamson, but one of the things that possibly we could give back to, you know, kind of help with offsetting this with something like agreeing for the attic space up there to not finish any space in the setback area. Would that make any difference?
I'm not sure that would.
That's something for deliberation, Kent, but
Yeah.
you know, without tipping my hand, I'd feel the way Jeff does too.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps, we are willing to give up finishing that area in the third floor. That's within the
Thanks,
setback.
Ms. Williamson. Appreciate your comment. You know, we haven't, there's another issue too, Jeff, which you may be familiar with after all these years. When the board is presented with an option that meets our regulations and standards, it's very hard for the board to consider, you know, other options that may be desirable from an architectural standpoint. When you can make it work, that's the way we'd like to see it. And we're seeing something that could possibly, that doesn't possibly work. It appears that it does work. So, you know, we could be hogtied here relative to our, you know, our ability to be lateral and make a decision. I'm missing a couple of things. I'm missing, you know, I understand your hardship, and I believe the rest of the board, well, I'm pretty sure the rest of the board did, since we voted affirmative, but you know, we understand the hardship and we granted the other variance. However, in this particular case, it's a little bit different. It's frankly an architectural desire, and we're just missing the key elements that allow us to approve the variance, and that's really where we are. If any other board members have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'd like to hear them. Like now. Does the applicant have anything other to add to the conversation? No. Is anybody in the audience from the public wish to be heard on this matter?
Yeah, this is Jim Young. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
I can, Mr. Young. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm the owner in the house that was actually in the slideshow next to that, 19 Oak Park. And I guess if I can speak up a little, well, it's a little unclear to me why we would draw such a hard line around the setback rule and all of that. I mean, I guess that's that's for you guys to debate. Where we would weigh in as neighbors and as new owners in this community is that completely agree that this house that's next to us doesn't fit with the rest of what's around the circle. And we are very supportive of the efforts that they are making, the new owners are making, to bring the house up to the rest of the street in terms of the aesthetics and quite frankly, being closer on the property values that we're hoping to all sustain and maintain here. So, from our standpoint, whether the porch is 8 feet or 16 feet wide isn't going to impact anything in our quality of life. But we're very supportive of the design, and I think it's going to add to the street.
I understand completely. Thank you very much for your comments. And I do note your comment relative to property values, and I appreciate that greatly. I've lived here all my life, so I understand exactly what you're saying. However, also financial considerations cannot be part of the deliberations either. So while I very much appreciate your comments and thoughts, that's just something that we really can't consider with regard to property values. But I clearly understand the comments. So thank you.
Thank you.
If I may chime in, this is Neil Maida. I'm also a neighbor to Brian and Sarah. We're very excited for them and their undertaking here, and we're very appreciative that they've involved us in the process. I thank you for the time to be able to present here. I own the home at 22 Oak Park, which was recently renovated. I'm also new to the street. My concern, many of them are shared with Jim, but one thing I want to add is that my concern without the porch is that it actually looks a little bit odd. And I know I've been listening for the past several minutes about how architectural design may not be taken into consideration, but it actually makes the house look quite a bit different than what's on the street. And so if that has any value, I'd like to at least share that, and I support Brian and Sarah's application.
Thanks very much for your comments as well, sir. And, from a personal standpoint, I don't disagree. My personal opinion of the original design happened to be very good, but, the board is under the P&Z regulations, and the P&Z makes the regulations. And we have to follow those regulations. That's our charge. So we really, again, our hands are tied relative to what we're able to do. I'm looking for a hardship. I'm looking for maybe a safety issue. I'm looking for anything that I can, get my teeth into. But unfortunately, I just can't do it. So unless and I'm here to listen. But unless anybody has anything further to add that's new, I'm gonna go ahead and close this hearing.
Okay, Jeff, before we do though, could we just make sure that, this application was a two-part application where we did present, the plans for the 5 foot by 8 foot porch as well as this. Yeah. So it's basically your decision at this point as to, how you go with it. But, that is our fallback if for some reason the board cannot, decide on the 5 by 16 foot porch, that the other porch would, be approved. Understood.
No, the 5 by 8 falls within the regulation falls within the boundaries of what we've approved in the past. We've adopted that policy, if you will, relative to 5 by 8 porches. So while I don't want to speak for the board particularly, I believe that we're okay with the 5 by 8. May I have any comments, questions, or concerns from the board with regard to the 5 by 8 porch proposal? I believe the board may be in agreement with my comments. So I think
we can handle that in deliberations, Jeff. I agree.
Understood.
Can I make one more comment before we wrap up, and this might help? At
Please
the end
do,
of
sir.
Thank you.
Please
Thank
do.
you. At the end of the last meeting, one of the things that was mentioned is removing the box bay window, which was non-conforming, and we are trying to leave the front of the house untouched as much as possible, since it is over the setback line. So one of the things we're leaving is that double window. I mean, the porch, the 16 by 5 porch, is designed to cover that large double window, and with the smaller porch, not only does it look odd, but that large double window does not have the protection from the weather and the outside. So that is the one reason why, if you go back and look at those 16 by 5, it is encompassing the front door and the double window. And we are removing the box bay at the suggestion of the board from the prior meeting. So I just wanted to let that, I don't know if that's enough of a hardship, but that is why we ended up with the 16 by 5 from the front door past the double window. And that's why we ended up at 16 feet, to try to cover that space.
Yeah.
And just the last thing is just the possibility of giving up the ability to finish any space in that setback in the attic, if that helps. So.
I understand completely. I really do, you guys. It's not a function of anything but the regulations that we have to follow. And sometimes it's a bummer, but that's it's the way we have to. We'll discuss it further in deliberations with regard to the 5 by 8. And with that, if anybody else has any comments or questions, please do speak up. Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this hearing or application. And thank you, everybody, for your time. We greatly appreciate you joining the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to second item on the agenda tonight, which is calendar number 3, 2021. Application of Mike Murray on behalf of Caroline Bartlett and Stephen Lopiano for a home at 9 East Trail, Darien, Connecticut, to allow the construction of a 1-story addition. Mike, you with us? Yep, I see you.
I am.
How are you, sir? Go ahead. The floor or the screen or whatever is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. My name is Mike Murray. As Mr. Williams pointed out, I'm here to represent the owners of 9 East Trail, Caroline Bartlett and Stephen Lopiano. With me tonight also is their architect, Dave Prush, who will chime in as well. But I don't know how many of you were able to see the site, but it is pretty unique up on the hill there with significant slopes and rocks and ledge and all that kind of stuff. But the proposal is for a variance for the rear yard setback, which is 14 feet short. It would end up being approximately 26 feet versus the required 40. The hardship is without doubt the topography and the ledge and all that. The addition is relatively modest at 320 square feet as an addition to their master bedroom. The property is in an acre zone. We have approximately 3/4 of an acre. This is really the only spot to put it. The addition will not will blend in quite nice. It's a Fraser Peters home. The surrounding homes are of a similar age and style. It would blend in quite nicely. One thing I should also point out, on a coverage basis, we'd be looking to go from 6.64% up to 7.68%. So it's not a lot of volume. And I should also point out that, because of the topography, and it's on one street, but because the street curves, there's really only one neighbor affected. That's the Johnson property at 7 East Trail. and they have submitted a letter of support in favor of the project. Now, because it's a Fraser Peters, Mr. Prush can certainly answer any of those questions, and maybe it might make sense, Dave, if you agree, would you like to maybe talk about the style and the construction?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll try to make this as brief as I can, but as Attorney Murray said, this is a Fraser Peters house built in 1936. And you may be familiar in Darien with other Fraser Peters houses that were predominantly of stone with some stucco and slate roofs. And as a body of work, that's why it has become known and has sort of taken on a historic value of itself. It's actually a fairly modest sized house. It's about 2,200 square feet. And the problem is that that these older houses, though, lack needs for contemporary use and contemporary life. This house has only 2 bathrooms, no guest facility. And so what they're trying to do is add a modest addition on that would contain a bathroom and closets for the master bath, and convert the existing small bath with a sloping roof ceiling into a half bath for guests. But that really comes with 2 challenges. As Mike mentioned, the site topography is very severe on the north side and the west side, but it also, the challenge is to preserve the integrity of the historic property, hence the reason we are proposing the addition where we are. If we were to go off the north side or the west side, which are in the conforming areas, they unfortunately would destroy some of the really defining characteristics of the Fraser Peters home, or that characterize his architecture. A couple of dormers on the back. The addition would go over a existing slate roof that could never be matched. And it would really present a false history, which is what you try not to do with historic homes. Similarly, on the west side, it is very steep. In fact, on that side, we're over a full story below. And that is the street face. That's what people see when they come up East Trail. And it's a major masonry face to this house. And again, a defining characteristic. So the east side is the most logical place to put it, is where the grade is the most gentle. An addition can be added here that will have no effect on the existing house, being the profile, the materials, the historic fabric, and we'll be able to make a clear distinction, which is a goal when adding on a new addition to an older home. We'd also be building with the grade here, parallel to it rather than perpendicular and against the grade. The other thing is the addition would be 180 feet from East Trail, and the sides that face East Trail, the public faces, would be completely preserved, the existing frontage, and this is the most inconspicuous place to locate this addition. So in the end, it alters none of these significant architectural features of the house, fully retains and preserves it, and it will require no regrading anywhere on this site. The grade will remain as is. The north and west sides will remain in their natural state with the rocks and the slope and the hill. The way Peters, it's evocative of his work that he built on rocky, hilly sites and built houses of stone. It was part of the nature of what he did. This house has successive levels, 3 different levels as it steps up the hill, in fact, which in turn presents the challenge. So it is really the most harmonious place to build here, in order to, again, not only affect the site the least, but also to maintain the integrity of the historic home.
Can someone explain to me why the addition can't go where the powder room, or where the master bathroom is now, and back where the HVAC, current and proposed HVAC are proposed? Why is that
Okay.
area not available to you?
That area is significantly lower than the level we are building on. It also has exterior terraces. It's the back of the house. It's the outdoor living area right now. And also you would be placing a new addition onto a significant stone facade of this house. Requires severe probably regrading or adjustments to the site. It would be difficult to get storm drainage in over there. And so that, and again, it's a principal facade from East Trail. And so taking the historic aspects into account, it is not the place really to put this addition. That's why it's
I
not
have a couple more questions.
Mr. Green, if I might just add one thing, the
Sure.
ledge and rock over at that spot is like nothing I've ever seen before. So I don't know that construction-wise you could even get it in that spot.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And you keep referring to north and east, but the house is not oriented exactly along that
You're
axis.
correct. Yeah. I was trying to keep it simple, but
Right. So
yes.
can you explain why you can't add an addition, making the house longer, which would protrude, I guess, northwest?
Okay, yeah. As I said, and I don't have my drawings or photos up, but that side of the house has an original old slate roof that could never be matched. It has the only two dormers that are evocative of his style on that back. Those would be destroyed, and you would be building over the existing house with new work. So to preserve that area, that's one thing. That's the architectural part. There's also severe topography in the back. It slopes off significantly in that area, and it just doesn't make any sense from, again, a streetscape point of view as far as the view of this house. So that's why we didn't go back. The back of the house is a little over 4 feet. The wall is 4 feet tall. So to build back there, you would really be globbing on over the existing eave line of the roof, most likely, or you would be virtually covering that entire facade with new work. And again, you would be losing it. And it's a significant part of the house, architecturally, historically.
Have you considered, like, this is I agree, it's a modest sized house, and the owners have been there for more than a decade. Is that right?
Correct. It's about right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And they've lived with the existing master bathroom. Have you considered a smaller addition in the front? Again, reducing the nonconformity that you're proposing.
Initially looking at this, I was at the very maximum trying to maintain it as at least less than a side yard, which is what the neighbors have on that side. It's actually their side yard, my client's rear yard. It is not a
But it is a
terribly
rear yard. I mean, so arguing that it should be considered a side yard.
No, I understand.
To me. It is what it is. It is a.
But
we can't go. Everyone would love to swap a side yard for a rear yard setback.
About 20. Yeah, it's kind of an odd site, right? It's 21 and a half feet long. It's 12 feet wide. It's not a large addition. It's got a closet that is certainly proposed, that is certainly not atypical of houses in the area, or even less. And again, the bathroom, it has nothing. It's not one of these. It's not extravagant. It's not elegant in that way, or too large. I think that one of the things about doing a bathroom is you need a certain amount of perimeter area for the things that go into a bathroom. So hence the need to kind of create some additional perimeter, the kind of crucifix shape, in order to get things in, because we only have a 12-foot width there. And we are trying to, again, do things that are, I would say, of the value of what this house should be in this location in this area.
But in general, it's a small house.
That's the reason. Yeah, it's about
a small house.
2,200 square feet. It's not a terribly large house, and this is, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughtful answers.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, your
Okay, Kevin, okay, so I was just, sorry, I was on mute, I apologize. Other questions and comments from board members, please?
just quickly clarify, the purpose of the variance is to allow you to build an additional bathroom and a half and a walk-in closet? Is that what the purpose of it is?
A walk-in closet and a master bathroom is the purpose of the variance, yes.
Yeah, I thought that.
Add on, yeah. The existing bathroom is being displaced by like a half bath.
Going from 2 bathrooms to 2.5, because one of the ones you have.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
And on the bathroom front, that would be still in compliance with the septic and all the other infrastructure that you have there.
Yes, because the septic is determined by bedrooms, and we're not proposing any additional bedrooms.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? I'll take that as a no too. Marianne Gastel, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Would you like to make any comment?
I think they did a very good job with Fraser Peters, and that's not an easy thing to do. We did have some thoughts, some aesthetic points that we made that we sent on to you, where they just had to do with the siding, some of the windows and some of the other details. But that was all we had. It was aesthetic thoughts.
Understood.
They did a very sensitive job with Fraser Peters.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marion, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know that your comments have been forwarded not only to the board, but to the applicants and their attorney as well. So I'm sure that they'll take that under some considerations, and we'll also have your comments as part of our deliberation after I close the hearing, okay? And thank you again for your time. We greatly appreciate it. If no one else has any other comments or questions, I'm going to go ahead and close this hearing. Mike, you okay?
I just have one question with regard to Ms. Castell's comments. I think we were on board with all of them except for one, and it relates to a window. Is it appropriate to just give you our 2 cents on that?
Sure.
Dave, do you want to?
Yeah.
My feeling about
I had a very nice meeting with Marion and the chairman of the Elizabeth of the Architectural Review Board Monday, talking about the house. And one of the things that I did as a follow-up to our meeting was talking to our builder, because one thing that came up was the reuse of stone on the house. And I found that they actually built an outdoor fireplace, maybe a couple of years ago, where they matched the stone on the house, and he sent me a photograph, which I do have. And that's without me looking at it. So so what we're talking about is we will see how it goes. We would build a sample, and because I'm reluctant to remove historic fabric from this old house, especially because the chimney on that end is going to remain. And we can probably work in some though, and I would see if we can match it, that would be great. And if we can't, but Jeff Stanley, who actually is present here with me, built the fireplace. He's the contractor. The color-wise, mortar-wise, shapes of stones, the texture, it was very, very close. And I was pleased with that. So, but we're going to follow up on because I think Marion's comments are well taken, that one of the things we're trying to do is allow the stone part to speak back to the house, and it is important to try to have some compatibility and respect for that. We had a couple of drafting issues, and I will take care of that.
Dave, may
Yeah.
I interrupt you? I think we're in good
No,
shape.
go ahead.
No, but can you just focus on the one comment that we don't necessarily agree with?
Yeah.
I think we're on board with all the others.
Yeah, I just kind of thought about the reasons that
I'm sorry, do you mind if I interrupt? I don't think this is a zoning issue.
Yeah, I was about to do it, Gary. I appreciate
Thank you.
it. You know, if I may, thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. I was just about to do that. Listen, I very much appreciate you, Marion and Dave working together, not only the Historical Society, but the Architectural Review Board. I would remind everybody that both are in advisory boards of nature. And so I want to emphasize they're an advisory board, and we respect their opinion and we listen to their opinion very carefully. But this is something that can be discussed offline, and we'll also discuss any sort of stipulation if that's appropriate, if the board finds it appropriate, if there's any stipulation required during our deliberations. But again, as Gary pointed out, it's not a zoning issue, but I really appreciate everybody working together to make this rather historical house keep its historical nature. So thank you.
I would like to mention that I do support the application. I mean, that is what you're talking about.
It is indeed.
Yeah, and I did say we were work with aesthetics, and that is not your area, but we did it anyway. And we happen to think that the window is too large and takes too much attention by having a fan on top. The fan could be left out, and it would be a lot simpler and it'd be better. That's aesthetic. Don't take it into your considerations. But
I understand completely.
I do support the application.
Your comments are duly noted, Marion, and thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
With that said, you guys obviously continue any conversations offline. With all that, I'll ask one more time if anybody has any further comment or questions. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the application. Thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Okay. With that, we're done with the applications, and we will move to deliberations unless any board members have any comments. Okay. Woody, I don't know how you're doing over there, but I hope you're smiling, so you must be hearing some of what I'm saying. Okay, so with that, we're going to go back to calendar number 2-2021 and the application of Brian and Sarah Williamson. So comments from the board, please. Oh, can the board hear me?
I wasn't on the prior application that Kevin referred to, but look, I respect the desire to have a house fit kind of the neighborhood and the character that the architect wishes to achieve. I'm troubled by going beyond to the extent that we set precedent and we've made the 5x8 kind of a soft rule. Obviously, we don't make zoning rules. And we've taken in establishing that 5x8, we thought about all the safety concerns that we could think of at the time. And I don't see, other than aesthetics, I don't see an exception here. But happy to hear what my fellow board members think.
And I agree with Gary.
Hang on, time out. I got feedback. Okay, I'm good. Go ahead, Kevin.
So yeah, I agree with Gary. I think there may be something unique about the property in that the house was moved and put there and the location it was put, but I don't see that there's any hardship that really deprives somebody of really using their property by not having a portico above your door. Of course, we're allowed in certain circumstances to allow a variance even if we don't find the hardship. And one of those scenarios is if there is a safety concern. And the board has determined that not having a portico above your door is a safety concern. That sounds reasonable and logical to me, and has decided that a 5x8 is the size you need. That sounds reasonable to me. And I'd be willing on a case-by-case basis to expand that if there was some articulation about why 5x8 is not sufficient in terms of providing safety, and why, in this case, 16x5 is required to provide for the safety. And I didn't hear a compelling answer to that. So absent anything on the record, I don't think we can approve this. And I just want to reinforce the point, Jeff, that you were making to them about being bound by our regulations. It's not just our regulations, it's state law, right? The zoning board of appeals in the various towns in Connecticut are created and authorized by state law, and we're bound by the statute that sets forth the criteria in which we can grant variances. And we violate state law, not just our own standards, by going beyond what is the minimum adjustment necessary, or in the case of a security concern, something that does not articulate why we genuinely need to have this bigger. So I'm with Gary on this one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Dan?
Yeah, I'm also with Gary because I did not hear any convincing argument about the hardship besides the architectural and the aesthetic nature and the design. I would support going with 5x8, which is our consistent, variance that we allow, given, the hardship with the house and given, the history of the house. But I think going beyond that would not be something I can support. So 5x8 we should remain consistent with our variance, thinking.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to add, because I see the property owner is still on, is we're all sympathetic, right? And if you were our neighbor, we would be supportive of it and want you to have that. But it's just we're bound by state law, and we took an oath to abide by state law. And unfortunately, I don't really see a way around it in this case.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen. Bill?
The precedent of just saying no to these variances seems like an important one to keep up. I think that a portico of larger than 5x8, if argued correctly, is actually kind of important. I agree with everybody. I would do 5x8. I'm happy with that. I would propose increasing the board standard to 5x10, throwing the applicants a bone, and a more reasonable size portico, and not setting a precedent of giving variances.
Thank you. Okay. I think I've heard from every board member, so I think we're good. Quite frankly, from a personal viewpoint, the original porch, which I guess was about 30 feet, was really kind of appropriate. And I mean, not appropriate. I mean, it was appropriate from an architectural standpoint, but unfortunately, it's just not appropriate from a regulation, and as Kevin said, a state law viewpoint. So, our hands are just tied by that, and to reduce it from 30 feet to 16 feet there's still no hardship. It doesn't change the situation as it exists. So I'm good with the 5x8. If the rest of the board is good with that, I'm ready to hear a motion.
Sure, I move that we deny the variance as to a 5x16 portico, but granted for a 5x8.
I'll second Kevin's motion.
All in favor? That's 5-0, Woody. 5x8. Normal stipulations, please. No building over it, you know, normal ones.
Right.
Enlarging.
Non-enclosure.
Non-enclosure. All right, Woody, you're on mute, but just give me a thumbs up if you're good. There you go. I'm good with Woody. Okay, then we're gonna move along to Bartlett and Lopiano, calendar 3-2021, 9 East Trail. Whoops, board comments.
Let me go first, Jeff. I drive past this house almost every day, and the location hardship is really genuine. It sits on a big rock, and it's just almost impossible to do anything based on the location. So the topography hardship is genuine in my view, and I've seen it personally. And I also like the fact that they're preserving the historic nature and the historic, feel of the house, trying to work within those constraints. So I personally, would support this variance.
Thanks, Dan. I mean, look, it would be far from the first time that we've approved a variance because of topography and rock ledge. We've done that on many occasions. This appears to me to be a very modest addition. I mean, 300 and some odd square feet for a master bath and a walk-in closet. I do appreciate the fact that these are sort of, luxuries in nature and sort of, I want sort of things, and they have lived in the house for a decade without it and so forth and so on. But, when trying to bring something up to the 21st century, if you will, and the hardship, I think, is kind of there for me. We've certainly done topography and rock ledge in the past, and this seems fairly modest to me. Kevin? Uh-oh.
It's the debate that we've had while I was off the board for when it was 2 years, that we have had going back 4 years now about, which is, I feel like sometimes we conflate the things that we need to find as a board, right? Number one, in my view, is that there's something unique or peculiar about the property. And I think that's certainly the case here. I think the topography certainly is unique, peculiar, unusual for the neighborhood, whatever the standard is in the various provisions that you look in. But having determined that, the next step is to make the assessment if that peculiarity has now created a hardship that deprives you from whatever substantial justice in using your property. And it's just hard to say that not having a walk-in closet and a master bathroom that's the size you want is depriving you of that substantial justice in the use of your property. I mean, they want to go from 2 to 2.5. They want to. I get it, and if it was my property, I'd want to also. But I just am uncomfortable that it meets the true standard of hardship, while it does meet the standard of a unique property that is peculiar in the neighborhood. It just feels it's like a stretch to get to the hardship for me.
Well, let me see if I can help a little bit with that, because look, I think they could, but for the topography, they would be able to build in other locations, buildable locations on the lot. But the topography is forcing, assume we agree to that, the topography is forcing the addition into the non-conforming area. And I think that would be a permissible analysis for us to make. I am struggling a little bit with minimal adjustment. Could you, is this too large an addition, given the fact that it's over the setback line? I think it could and should be smaller. What mitigates that a little bit is that the Johnsons, and I haven't seen documentation to this, but I guess I believe the applicant, Woody, unless you've seen documentation, that the Johnsons are supportive of this application. I didn't see in the file, maybe we got it a letter, the usual letter or email of support. But I'll assume that they are supportive of it, and that their house is, because it's a rear lot, is or wherever their house is, it's further back. So I think we could justify a variance. I'm a little bit troubled by the size of this one. I think the walk-in closet and contrary to the architect's articulation, I think it's a big addition for the size of this house, and I don't know that it's necessary, Kevin, to your point, for enjoyment or the whatever the statutory language is, denying them the enjoyment of the house. But I think adding a master bath, given the topography in that location, makes some sense. I could be persuaded to vote for that. I would like to see this addition a little smaller. If it were, Kevin, would that bring you along? You're on mute, Kevin.
Kev, you're on mute.
You would think doing these all day long after a year plus. I guess I'm a dummy. To answer your question, Gary, I'm not sure, because you don't even get to the question of minimal adjustment needed unless you find that there's something unique about the property and there's a hardship, and this is the minimal adjustment. So while I agree there reasonably is nowhere else that they could put an addition, I'm not sure that they have this inalienable right to this addition, because them not putting it in is really depriving them of using their property in a meaningful way.
Look, I think there's some, in addition to the statutory obligations of the board, when I've read more recent court decisions, and Kevin, you probably read them more recently than I have, the courts seem to be moving towards that variance for a desire don't rise to the level of minimal adjustment necessary. Just because someone wants it doesn't mean they can get it.
And we have been
Go ahead.
flexible in this, and I'm happy to be flexible, and we as the board have charted a path for what we think is best for the town, as long as it's compliant with state law, and I'm continue to be flexible. Just this one where it's a bigger bathroom and a walk-in closet makes me a little bit nervous.
I'm going to assume, Kevin, that you said a little uncomfortable.
Yes, uncomfortable, nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think you went on mute a little too early. Okay. So I think where we're going, and Bill, I'm going to go to you next, and feel free to make any comment or not. I understand. We welcome you to the board tonight, and understand it's your first meeting. But having said that, I think where we're going seems to be like there is a hardship to be discussed that we could understand, but it's not the minimum adjustment necessary. I think that seems to be where we may be headed. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I thought that the topology or the topography as a hardship is reasonable, that I thought that the whole application seemed reasonable and very well thought through, and I'm not worried at all about granting it as a variance based on the hardship of the topology or topography. And I thought they thought through all of the other possible ways to add that space very thoroughly. And the fact that they had lived there for a while beforehand doesn't seem to me to be an argument against granting this, because who's to say that for the last 4 years they didn't think, oh yeah, I can live in here longer because eventually we're going to redo this so that to make it tolerable for us. So anyway, I support the granting it.
Thanks. Okay. Well, this is a little bit of an unusual situation. I'm not too sure I've seen this before in all my years. But it seems like the board is clearly split, and I mean, but I guess if no other board members have any comments, Woody, I'll defer to you if you have any comment. But
So, hold on, I heard Dan's comment said, Dan, did you, I know where you go and you think it, you know, you appreciate the aesthetics and the topography of it. Are you okay with the size of the?
Yes, Gary, because in my
I'm
view,
sorry if I missed that. I apologize.
no, in my view, they were not asking for an enormous amount of variance. Given the modest size of the house, I thought what the variance that is asked for is fairly reasonable, given the circumstances they find themselves.
Mhm.
Jeff, you?
Gary, this is a really difficult one because I listened to you and Kevin, and I listened to Bill and Dan, and then of course I have my own thoughts, which everybody knows. But the only thing that I'm struggling with is the minimum adjustment. I mean, in my opinion, there is a hardship. I mean, we've seen topography issues a number of times, dozens of times over the years. So I'm past that. But is it the minimum? I mean,
If I may for a minimum adjustment, the amount of effort that needs to go in from all of their parties in order to make any adjustment sets a minimum to doing it at all, and even calling out the contractors and the architects and everybody. So that sets a pretty high minimum, and I'm surprised that this even clears it.
May I ask for clarification on that last comment? Because Woody's looking a little confused too, but you're surprised that it clears? I'm sorry, I missed your point. I apologize.
In determining what the minimum adjustment is, there is all of these resources and people's time that goes into doing any adjustment at all. And so the minimum adjustment has to be very high for it to be done at all. So if it just has to be a substantial size in order for it to be worth any of this effort or conversation. And so I would say that's a bar for a high minimum adjustment, high minimum necessary adjustment. And so I would not make any change to their requested 300 square feet, because saying that a smaller minimum adjustment is possible, I don't think is accurate.
Okay. Appreciate your comment. Wow. Any other comments from the board?
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
we're getting feedback.
Yeah, you got to turn something off. You're okay. That may be Gary. Go ahead, Woody. Feedback's gone.
Am I okay?
No, it's you. Go back to your phone. Yeah.
Try that. Now is it okay?
Go.
Okay,
Yep.
that's better. One thing that did become evident as we were looking at this proposal with the town historian and the architectural review chair was that this isn't a two-story proposed volume, although most of the house is 1.5 or so. There's a lot of step-down roof lines, and when we looked at the cross sections of it, it does have a rather modest fit, and they're trying to match the ridge line with a new copper roof connected to the slate roof. And they looked at going lower, which would reduce the volume. And the design just didn't work for a bathroom space. It would have been nice maybe to even go higher, but that would have disrupted the Fraser-Peters lines. So I guess what I'm saying is I think there was a pretty well thought effort here, and certainly a try to make this minimal but respectful. Now, following up on that, let me just offer that if you all can get to an approval, there is a few conditions or stipulations that might be considered, like working with the town historian a little further on making sure the stucco matches and making sure the stone matches as much as possible. And maybe that would help make the fit feel a little better. I think the architect and owner are genuine in their desire to work with Fraser Peters, but let's see how it goes.
I think that's been clear, that the willingness to work with the architectural design of the original house. But I would suggest that if the board wants to make stipulations on color of stucco and things of that nature, I'm not particularly concerned about it for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a voluntary thing. I mean, it's an advisory board. It's a voluntary thing on behalf of the applicant. And not only that, but if I understood correctly, and I'm pretty sure I did, and Dan, you can confirm this, but did they not, excuse me, I'm sorry. Did they not say that this house was 180 feet off the front road?
Yes, it is.
Well, I got to tell you something. I'm not going to notice the change of color in stucco from 180 feet. So, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm still troubled with, and I appreciate that the idea about that you wouldn't undertake a project unless you get enough out of it, right? You wouldn't engage everyone unless you got a substantial improvement to your living conditions. But I am, as I look at the layout, they're getting the 1.5 bath. I'm sorry, they're adding a bathroom and changing the current bathroom into a half bathroom, but they're also adding the closet, which they don't have, and they didn't really explain why that was really an important feature. Not every master bath has the separate water closet, has a shower stall that's that big, and the soaker tub with the two-barreled sink and the walk-in closet. I'm troubled that it's not the minimum adjustment. I mean, you hate to architect stuff, but I think we are charged with, is this a minimal adjustment? I'm still not going to get Kevin to come along. So
for me, a lot of it is gray area here. The only thing that's kind of black and white is the setback line, and hardship is a gray area. Is not having electricity a hardship? Not, or having a soaking tub versus a whatever. And so the hardship is a gray area. The minimal adjustment is a gray area here. And so, I mean, I just think that it's pretty clear that we can go off the hardship being the topography, and that everything else is very genuine.
Yeah,
no, I think we agree that the features of the land do, I think, create a hardship in that they can't put this addition elsewhere. I've been convinced of that. I'm just torn on whether then that without this they've been deprived of their use of the home in a meaningful way that couldn't be accomplished with a smaller addition.
My one other argument for the what is the exact term? The minimal adjustment necessary to order. I don't know what the words are. Okay, so minimal adjustment necessary. My other argument is that so much thought has gone into all of the different parties on how they could make this work that it's impossible for even 8 of us to get our head around in however long we've read these documents and talked about them multiple times. And I'm sure that I trust that they have explored a lot of other options before they arrived at this one plan.
Well, I believe they did explore the options as to the location of the addition. I believe, and I think he presented a good argument. I can't remember whether it was architect or presented that argument. and I agree with all that this is the location of an addition that if there is to be one, this is where it must be.
So maybe 600 square foot addition would be above the minimum needed. I feel comfortable that this is above needed. So that's all I have.
Oof. Okay. Well, I think regardless of what, as Gary would say, I think that I'm not too sure I'm going to get Gary to go along either, let alone Kevin, but I'm not, this is really interesting. Okay. So, I mean, any other comments from the board? Because I gotta tell you,
in your conversations with them, did you talk to them about size?
I'm sorry, did we talk about size?
Yeah, you may have talked about the location and the design and the matching roof lines and all that stuff, but did you talk about the size of the addition?
Yeah, I think we did to some extent, particularly with the volume I was talking about before, the fact that they're matching the bridge, they're actually pulling the roof lines down fairly low. And then they have the, what do you call it, a cross kind of design where they've got some gables that come out of the main form.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm asking, Woody. I'm asking about the size of the living space.
Yeah, I don't remember talking about the size of the closet or the particular bathtub spaces.
Right.
Correct.
so Woody, there was no discussion, just to clarify, there was no discussion about making it smaller at any point. Is that correct?
Yes, that's fair. Yes.
Oof.
Yeah, I kind of wish that we have an opportunity to see what that would look like, encourage it.
So let me ask, if appropriate, but I mean, if they came back with a smaller version, is it worth their time?
Well, yeah, because they may get my vote and they may not now. And I'm assuming Kevin's a no, but they might get 4 votes with a different design, or I might look at that different design and say, you know what, this passes. So I don't think we should vote on this one.
You want me to continue this? Is that what you said?
I don't know. It could be reopened. They'd have to refile.
Oh, that's right. I can't. I already closed it. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Should have thought of that.
That goes back to my earlier point about once they have to refile and put the additional effort in, then it just sets a high bar for a minimal necessary change at all to have the 5 subcontractors come out and the 4 different representatives to even make this happen at all.
Well, we are.
I'll vote yes. I'll vote yes to it. In part because of the neighbors on the side.
You guys are making my job really hard.
Well, this is called deliberation, Jeff. Good thing.
I know. I'm totally kidding. No. And deliberation is always good. So, okay. I think we're there. I'm so close.
And I'll justify it. Look, I think they get it. I understand. I think they've established the hardship enough for me to believe that they are deserving of something out to the back of the house there. I think it's slightly too larger than I would like to see. And Woody, I think we should press people on that, not only volume, but necessity of features. But I'll vote yes.
Okay. All right. So
I'll not move for that.
By the way, I don't mind my job. It's perfectly fine. But this has been really interesting because yeah, it's why they pay me the big bucks. Why I have the corner office too. Yeah, sitting at my kitchen table. Okay. So in any event, that was crazy. I've never seen that before because it was sort of 2, 2, and 1. and frankly, I was the one. Okay, I think we're okay. So let's make a motion, and I'm gonna I would ask Dan to make the motion. Dan?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to grant the variance.
All right, do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Bill. Woody, Dan made the motion, Bill seconded. All those in favor? Yeah, thanks, Bill. Okay, so that's 4-1, and that was interesting.
Do
Okay.
you want,
I don't want to add the stipulations on color of stucco and all that nonsense. I think that's visual stuff that I don't think is within our purview.
I agree 100%. 100%. What ARB and the applicant agreed to do is not our purview. So.
And as far as I can
hope-
tell, there are no windows, right, that are on that offending side that are closer
Yeah,
to
Marion.
the property line.
Yeah, Marion had some issue with the size of the window, and apparently there's a fan over it, and that was.
That's not that window. Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I think they're in agreement with regard to color of stucco and material finishes and the rest of it. So I think we're okay there.
Right.
All right. All right. So we're done with that. Let's go to other business real quickly. Okay, I did not realize this would go an hour and a half. It's perfectly fine, but I thought it would be a little different. Let me just find my agenda. Just a moment, please. I know that we have to approve the February 10th minutes. That I know. Still don't understand why.
no, we don't actually.
Woody, what's that?
No, we don't actually have to approve those, because we're still working on 7-Eleven to clarify all the details in that.
That's on the agenda, sir.
It is on the agenda. But
Well, you can't put. Okay.
I
Fine.
think
If you put something on the agenda, I'm going to address it.
we want to make sure it's good. But we do have an extension request that's on the agenda.
All right. I don't know what happened to my agenda. Woody, find the agenda, please, and tell me what else we have for other business.
Okay.
Well, because so far I've been wrong, so.
No. We have a project on DuBois Street that is requesting a first-time extension. This is another one of those projects that got caught up in all the virus delays and trying to get prices and so forth. Actually, let me just suggest maybe even instead of just 6 months, maybe consider giving them more. We did that previously.
Yeah, look, it's a tough time now. I have no problem with 12. Anybody have any problem with 12? I'll go to 9 if you want.
No, but let's just make sure it's because of the current situation and that doesn't become our standard.
Understood.
Correct.
Let's give them 9 then, Gary. You okay with that?
I'm good.
All right. Gary made a motion for a 9-month extension. I got a second from Kevin. All those in favor? Good with the 9 months, Woody.
Okay, that's good. Let me just bring up, we have something on the agenda about the possibility of looking into these porch sizes. And of course, that came up tonight. Is that something that you would like to explore? Going beyond the 5 foot by 8 foot, maybe we should take some photos of a bunch that are out there and see how they look. There are proportional things that are sometimes done, like if it doesn't exceed 25% of the facade, dormers are okay. We could, but just wanted to offer that possibility if you're feeling that something bigger than 5 by 8 should be more the standard.
Well, I tell you, from my perspective, we addressed the 5 by 8 thing. Well, in my number of years on the board, fairly recently. It was a few years ago, but we adopted that. It seems to be working from my perspective to a large extent. Although I don't disagree, there are several instances that I've seen that, frankly, I'd like to see the larger porch. I happen to like the look of the the southern wraparound porch, whatever you want to call it. But look, other board members comment on that, please.
Look, I think we're limited to this is in the setback, the zoning rules. If the P&Z wants to make an exception for porches in the setback, let them do it. But I don't think doing more than what we believe is required for safety is supported by law.
And I'd certainly be open to it, but if someone's going to be looking into this, I don't think it's pictures. I think it's some analysis, some report, a letter from someone, whether it's fire department, police commission, something saying, we view for safety purposes with rain and ice and sleet that you should have X size. If we got something like that, I'm absolutely open to exploring changing it, but I don't think it's just we think this looks better and so we should expand beyond by 8.
Yeah. I think we'll take that unless anybody else has anything else to add that's different. I think we'll stick with where we are with the 8x5 for now. Okay, I see Dan ahead, so I think we're good there. Woody, next.
No, that's fine. I think I thought that was the most important thing. So,
all right, good.
Just one more thing I'll pass along, and that's that there is an effort coming along to try to receive applications more online. So the application form and the information on it is being, I'll say, adjusted a little bit. And to pick up on where Chuck was many months ago, we will be asking some details about the square footage and making sure that the applicant confirms some things like how long they've owned the property, 2 or 3 things that maybe would help us. And we're dropping out a couple things that don't seem valuable, like are there any covenants or easement restrictions? But you'll be seeing that sometime in the next few months, I think.
Yeah, that's good, Woody, because, square footage of existing and proposed, those are important.
Yeah. And we often don't get that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
But that's important, Woody. I'd love to move up the timeline on that because we've been talking about on the changes in the application, and I believe we've seen them and reviewed them and kind of approved them, and I think we need some movement on that because, to Gary's point, we've always been curious about what's the size of the house now and what's it going to be in the future, and they never seem to be able to address that. So can you move the issue a little bit higher on the priority list?
Yeah.
Done. The application is outdated.
Yes, as soon as we get as soon as we get something a little clearer, we'll bring it along to you. Sorry, I'm cutting out here.
That's all right. Just go on mute. I got it. Okay. I'm good. Oh, someone's phone is ringing. So with that, I'm gonna unless there are any other questions. Oh, go ahead, Woody.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Okay, you're good. Okay, fine. All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you joining tonight. Thank you so much. See you in a month.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Gary, nice to have you back here. Welcome back.
I wanted to know